This just looks like a rank embarrassment. Who wants to watch Snow White prance about the forest, wondering which Fortune 500 company she might ascend to?
Breaking right now, disaster for Disney. After Snow White becomes Snow Woke, and the budget of the movie is probably never ever going to be made back up because of the huge backlash against this film for a whole load of reasons. So the UK premiere has been cancelled altogether. There will be no red carpet at the US premiere. The tracking numbers for this movie are absolutely disastrous. And it's because, of course, Disney decided to turn this beautiful fairy tale into something pushing woke ideology. One of the big issues is this woman here, Rachel Zegler, the Latino actress who was hired to take on the iconic role, but posted after the election of Donald Trump that there was a deep, deep sickness in the United States, taking aim at 77 million Americans who voted for Trump. She said that she hoped Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace. Now, not surprisingly, that hasn't gone down well in MAGA world, which is threatening a complete boycott of this movie. What's more is that in an interview with Gal Gadot, who plays the evil queen, Rachel Zegler actually said that the original story of Snow White wasn't even going to be kept.
Bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that
She's
is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign. I am.
Wonder why that didn't go down well with middle America. Then let me tell you about the Seven Dwarfs. This is absolutely nuts. The Seven Dwarfs, right? Big part of Snow White. And you would think this was a great opportunity for dwarf actors who are pretty much not that in demand these days. There were no munchkins in the new Wicked movie. You think it would be a good opportunity for them to get some work. Oh, no. First up, as a result of criticism from that dude, Peter Dinklage, you would see that the Seven Dwarfs were not dwarfs at all. They were sort of a lineup of DEI hires with only one short guy. Then Disney, after that didn't rate well in the test performances, said, okay, we're just going to get rid of the dwarfs altogether. They're gone, and we're going to replace them by CGI, even though this is meant to be a live action movie. Now, after the premiere of the film, that dude, the voice of Grumpy, Martin Kleber, has spoken out to TMZ and said, actually, shame on Disney for not allowing me this opportunity to have a red carpet premiere. Variety reported this week that even in the heart of Hollywood, where usually Disney invites dozens of media outlets and lays out the red carpet, none of that will be happening. Instead, there is just going to be one house crew, effectively meaning they don't trust Rachel Zegler to say a word. What an absolute mess. And actually, Connor Tomlinson, contributor to Courage Media, co-host of the Deprogram podcast with the New Culture Forum, is this not the ultimate example of go woke, go broke? Why on earth would any of us want to go and see this complete bastardization of Snow White, which Disney created in a different era when they were trying to shove woke ideology down our throat?
Yeah, well, Disney's been creatively bankrupt and ideologically brain rotted for some time now. I remember going to see the Star Wars sequels, The Force Awakens, back in 2015, when all of the directors, cast, and crew were wearing the Force's female t-shirts. And what ended up there was they wandered so deep down a creative cul-de-sac by trying to promote feminist ideology in a Star Wars film that they killed off all the original cast and had the granddaughter of the arch villain basically commit familial genocide against the Skywalkers and then self-identify as one at the end, as if the entire audience meant to stand up and clap for collectively destroying their childhood. Yeah, this just looks like a rank embarrassment. Who wants to watch Snow White prance about the forest, wondering which Fortune 500 company she might ascend to as a sort of DEI hire? And then her cavalcade of non-specific diverse individuals. One, the costume design looks like something like a community theatre, and two, they don't exactly inspire much in terms of remembering even which one is which. And then the CGIs look terrible. Most of the stuff that Disney does on a soundstage these days, I mean, you can't really suspend disbelief at it. Anyone whose eyes were subjected to She-Hulk twerking can't scrub that from their memory, and that costs, you know, hundreds of millions to put together. Basically, Disney should just go back to the drawing board. They've not done anything particularly good since the 90s in terms of their core animation. Pixar has been dead since the 2010s. Marvel has been dead for like the last 5 or 6 years. If anyone's looked at the box office, a Captain America, Brave New World, another woke Frankensteinian creation that even got boycotted by their own side because it had an Israeli superhero in it. My oh my, how the tables have turned. They should see that, you know, pushing DEI down our throats and putting the best superhero characters to the back of the queue just isn't working. And I think that probably, judging by how badly this press tour is going, they put Dopey the Dwarf in charge of it.
Yes, they very much did. And I mean, goodness me, Connor, this has been a complete disaster all over social media. The first trailer received 1.4 million dislikes on YouTube. The second, almost 900,000 dislikes. And why I think they're so stupid is there is a way to get through a movie like this without being uber woke, and the example is Wicked. But first, do you know that sleeping less than 6 hours per night doubles the risk of early death? Poor sleep is also linked to obesity, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, depression, and a weakened immune system. Now, I've struggled with sleep for a while. I tried everything, but found it difficult to wind down and get to sleep before 2 a.m. And I'm not alone. The CDC reports over 35% of adults in the US sleep less than the recommended 7 hours. Many sleep supplements contain melatonin and other ingredients that create dependencies, cause morning grogginess, and lose their effectiveness over time. So that's why I take Evening Bean. It's a brand new product by Verso. After 3 years of perfecting the formula, they created a melatonin-free drink mix with clinically studied patented ingredients. It's formulated to calm an active mind, help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and improve deep and REM sleep, all without creating dependencies or causing morning grogginess. I actually look forward to drinking it every night because not only does it help me fall asleep faster, but it actually tastes so good. It's become my new nightcap. By the way, totally fine if you're vegan or keto. So click the link in the show description or head on over to evening.ver.so/outspoken. Use the coupon code outspoken at checkout to save 15% on your first order. Try Evening Bean tonight. Wake up feeling refreshed tomorrow. That's evening.ver.so/outspoken. Use the coupon code outspoken to save 15%. That's at checkout. And by the way, you can just click on the link in the description box below if that's easier. But now, back to the show. Now, look, I know Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo were absolutely awful in all of their interviews promoting the movie, and that put a lot of people off going to see it, right? Because it was uber woke. But the movie itself wasn't, Connor. And even Ben Shapiro on the Daily Wire, who was very much expecting, I think, to hate the movie, said, actually, this is really, really good because it felt old school, it felt classic. And sure, there are a couple of references to things that you might view as a little bit woke, but it wasn't a dominant theme of the movie in any way. And guess what, Connor? It was a massive commercial success. Just keep politics out of family movies is surely the message.
Well, I don't think you can make it apolitical because obviously every film is trying to communicate a kind of value. Instead, trying to communicate something wholesome is better. Let's think of like the best Disney films, right? One of the best ones in the 90s, Hercules, okay? It's a story about an adopted son growing to reach his potential, becoming a hero, the woman in the story being embittered by a lost love, decides to make a personal sacrifice. He decides to sacrifice in turn for her. He ascends to godhood, and then he decides, you know what, I'd rather live an earthly life with my earthly family and be happily married and serve the people. Great message. Same with the first Incredibles film, right? The second Incredibles film had Mrs. Incredible leave her family, go be a girl boss, and save literally Hillary Clinton. Completely forgettable and bastardized. But the first Incredibles film is about the sort of virtues of being a man, why you might lose sight of the glory days when you become a dad, and then realizing actually, no, it's in taking care of your family and being surrounded by them, which is what the meaningful role of a man is. It's not just being out for yourself and being a glory hunter and trying to relive your 20s. All those messages were hits, they're instant classics, they're timeless, and they did well at the box office. Now let's look at Disney's most recent ventures. Even the early live action remakes that did quite well at the box office. I'm thinking Aladdin and Lion King. Lion King was uninspiring compared to the original. And then Aladdin, again, they decided to contort Princess Jasmine's storyline as rather than appropriate for the time and place of its setting, trying to pick a suitor for herself and subordinating her firebrand personality to the kind of man that could defend her against the giant snake of Jafar. Instead, she wanted power. She wanted to be a sultan. So this is the reason that actually all of these narratives are entirely corrupted. It's because they don't see everything as a series of relationships. They don't see it as characters gaining in virtue. What they see it as marginalized members of various communities struggling to empower themselves. And so much like Captain Marvel, much like Aladdin, much like the new Snow White, you can't have a healthy relationship between a man and a woman in the story. You can't have wholesome character growth. Instead, the character has to start out as oppressed, and at the end, they have to end up as empowered because that's the only modern woke hero narrative. The characters themselves don't need to be virtuous, as Rachel Zegler clearly herself isn't. She just needs to end up with that C-suite executive job at the end of it. And frankly, it doesn't tap into human intuitions, and it's not very interesting for families, which is why it's probably going to flop.
Oh, I think it will absolutely flop. That the tracking numbers are terrible. Can I ask you about the whole dwarf thing, Connor? Because the problem is, right, I remember growing up and being told, oh, no, you can't say dwarfs, you have to say little people. But now I'm like, is that offensive? I don't know. And I was really shocked by what Peter Dinklage actually said about this, because he was speaking on the WTF with Mark Maron podcast back in January last year. And this got Disney to change its whole strategy about the dwarves. And he said, literally, no offense to anything, but I was sort of taken aback. They were very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White, but you're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Take a step back and look at what you're doing there. And I'm like, I don't get it. Like, what are you saying? You're a little person and you don't want there to be the Seven Dwarfs. Do you see what I'm saying? I found that very odd, because he's actually taking work away from actual little people actors and actresses.
Yeah, he's pulling the very short ladder up after himself. It's funny because he decided to play Tyrion Lannister for many years, a character whose dwarfism is central to his role, but whose intellect makes him an interesting character. And so that didn't mean that the audience ever, so to speak, looked down on him in that way. He was also very happy in the early 2000s to play a dwarf publisher in Elf and be subjected to short jokes through that, and he got a handsome paycheck and probably royalties for that. So it's just because modern political correctness allows him to manufacture this outrage now, he's coming out and doing it. I'm actually much on more of the side of the actor who you said voices grumpy, but I know him for playing Marty in Pirates of the Caribbean, one of the casts of characters who had a very humorous joke where he had an oversized gun and got shot back in At World's End. Yeah, just have short actors play dwarves, because nobody thought that there being seven dwarves was demeaning. Like, we didn't think lesser of the dwarves because they were short. You're absurd. This is clearly an insecurity on your part. And Disney have now just shot themselves in the foot first by casting a hideous, diverse cadre of characters that nobody wants to remember, and then layering over it with bad CGI when they could have just hired seven dwarf actors in the first place to do a perfectly serviceable job.
It does make me laugh, though, because Disney is really struggling with this new MAGA era, right? Because Dana Walden, who is one of their most senior executives, best friends with Kamala Harris. And she was viewed as being a shoo-in to take over as chief executive in the coming months. And obviously now that friendship has put her under a lot of scrutiny, and in fact it may mean that she doesn't get the job. But there you go.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.